Good morning, Internet, and welcome back to the third and final day of IDTX 2024. Hasn't it flown by? It is slightly sad to be near the end, but we've got a whole day of fantastic sessions ahead, starting, of course, with this one. Tory, thank you so much for joining us. I don't want to take up any more of your speaking time than I absolutely have to, so I'm going to shut up and get out of the way. The stage is yours.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, and today I'm going to be talking about mastering 360 interactions for e-learning. And I'll first start with saying who I am. I'm a learning and development consultant. I've been working in corporate learning and development as an instructional designer for quite a few years, and my focus is mostly e-learning. That's where my passion is, and so figuring out how to make it more effective and also look really good is kind of what my goals are. So, as we're looking at what we're going to do today, I'm going to first introduce 360 interactions because I posted a poll a few days ago and I realized that not a lot of people know what 360 interactions are necessarily. So, I'm going to try to lay the foundation, set the stage a little bit. And then we're going to look at some comparisons, my favorite tools, and then I'll walk you through a short demo because one of my favorite things when going to a presentation like this is to actually get some actionable insights that I can take away and do immediately. So hopefully this session will be that for you. And let's get started. So what are 360 interactions? This is kind of figuring out when to use them, what are they, and why would I want to use them for e-learning? So I like to describe it as kind of VR light. So it's not virtual reality because you are not immersed in anything, but it's a light kind of version of it. And one of the big case studies or reasons why I chose to use a 360 interaction in this past year was for this project where I had a client come to me requesting a virtual staff ride. So the need was that they currently did a staff ride where about 30 firefighters come to their location and ride along to listen to the story of something that happened, an event quite a few years ago. But so it was really important to be able to capture the story of what was happening, but also the location. And so I ended up creating a prototype with a 360 interaction that I'll show you later with an AI generated prototype. And then as I was presenting it to my stakeholders, I said, this would actually be a really more of a rich experience or a better use of our time if it was the actual location. So then I decided to go out to California, take these 360 photos, and now you're able to zoom around your entire area and look at key points of interest. So, for example, you see the unnamed creek drainage, which for firefighters to be able to see where that location of the fire kind of billowing out was really impactful. And then to see some other points of interest, like, for example, this tile house, to see how far it is in distance and other things like power lines and stuff like that is very important to see spatially where you're located and what you're looking at in addition to the storytelling piece of it. So that's just kind of where I started with with 360. Sorry, I put VR, so that made me think of it. But another thing here is that I would say it's more of a simulation-based learning. It's very experiential. You want to provide them with like a real-world experience. So making something up, it can work for storytelling, but this is going to be you're going to get the most bang for your buck if you're actually using an experience or a place that they can explore. And so when you would use it would be exploratory scenarios and then based on real world context. So really what I just said is set the stage, make sure that it's something that really connects with the learning outcomes that are desirable. For example, when I use the virtual staff ride, the people were actually going to these locations, so it connected very seamlessly. And then when you're looking at different ways to create a 360 photo, there's a lot of stock photos available, which I think is a great start. And then I also have used AI generated photos, which I love for prototyping because it really helps my stakeholders get an idea of what could be created before you put in a lot of work, time, and money into creating it. And then the last one is personalized photos. So I'll show you the device that I use. But this has been the best way to use 360 interactions that I have found because it really connects the space that is exactly relatable and relevant to the content. So let's first look. Here's some of my favorite stock photo websites. And when you're looking for these, I'll show you actually. I'll kind of demo these. When I go through the demo, I'm just getting over the slides and then I'll kind of jump into everything else. So Shutterstock, Deposit Photos, and Envato Elements are my favorite for going to find 360 photos. And then you also have some software considerations. So after you've obtained these 360 photos and you don't like, where do you put them is the next question. So I generally use Articulate Storyline 360 because they have a really good 360 image option. And then another option that I have found is H5P because they have a 360 tour within that platform as well. And so if you have an LMS that is already integrated with H5P, you can use that directly in your LMS. So there's two really good options here for delivering the solution. And then I will share this at the end, but this is some of my contact information and the camera link. Okay, so when we're looking at Shutterstock, if I type in 360, this is kind of what it pulls up. So it's really interesting because it's going to be a flat image. And let me screen share, make that big. So it's going to be a flat image and it just looks a little strange. But when you download it, it'll be a JPEG and then you can just pull it into your software. So one thing I love about this camera that I use is that it has its own app. So you can actually go in and download your photos from the app. And Envato Elements is another good one. If you type in 360 photos, then you can get some different options here. And it looks weird, but this is what you're looking for. This is what you want. And then if I were to, so this is the AI generated option. So this is kind of the experience that you're looking for, is where someone can pan around and drag through your scenario or your image. So if you were really good at prompting, I've found some good ones with this, but I'm not very good at prompting it. So I get like random, like a million doors in a room if I ever do a room. So I've stuck to kind of natural scenes. So that's up to you on how you want to use this, but it is good for initial stakeholder review. So I'm just going to do, let's see. I'm gonna go crazy and do a city scene with tall buildings. I know this is gonna give me a horrible result, but you know what? That's okay. We're doing this just for example. So I generally like to use realistic, and you can pay for this. If you do not pay for this, it will show a watermark on the top and the bottom of your screen. So that is something, but that's okay for prototyping, I would say. So it quickly generates. And here we go. So here's a city scene with tall buildings and cars. So, I mean, it works. If it's something that you need to use for prototyping. I mean, you can use it for imaginative kind of storytelling as well. So once I have an image downloaded, I always pull it into Storyline. That's kind of where I work. But if you work in H5P, that's where you can work on this as well. And so when you look at that experience, you're going to see first, when you're looking at Storyline, you're going to click on insert a 360 image, and that's where all of this magic will happen. So once I click there, then you choose your image. And for this example, you always have to click Edit 360 Image. And this is actually a photo that I took. So it was this office actually before it was finished. So one thing that you might notice is that the screens are stitched together. So if I show you this little camera, this is how I took it. It has a front camera and a back camera, and it has a very wide lens. So it's taking a picture of the front and the back at the same time. And then whenever the sides are going to be stitched together. So for this, I had it on a tripod, and it does not get rid of the tripod very well. So one solution that I found, since Photoshop has taken away their 360 image capabilities, is to use Lightroom. And I'll show you a quick demo on how to. So I would pull my image in, and just like we saw in Shutterstock, it's that very long, you kind of see the whole image all at once. But when you pull it into Lightroom, if you have the Adobe Creative Suite, you can just click this little Band-Aid, and let's see, we're going to do Content Aware Remove. And then you would just kind of paint over the bottom of the screen where that tripod would be. And then magically it kind of gets rid of that. So then when you export it back out as a JPEG, you'll see your edited video or picture with less of an obvious mark on the bottom. So that's just one really quick workflow that you can work through.
Just really quickly, Tori, we had a question come in. What make and model of camera are you using?
Yeah, so this is an Insta360 X3, and I have a link on my slide, which I'll bring up again, which actually, let me just bring it up right now so that you can grab it. Here we go. Here we go. This is our camera link. So it's at Amazon. You can find the link, the Amazon. It's not super cheap, but I would say that it's a really good, if you prototype it with the AI generated or even Shutterstock, then having this as like your second solution is really good. So
Brilliant.
there we go. Thank you. So when you get back into your image, now you have to make some decisions on how you're going to use it for e-learning, right? And in this example here, I have a few of my markers, which in Storyline and in H5P, it's very simple to add markers. And you can even add to go to a new scene if you wanted to kind of move along to a different location. But what I have here is just, I added my markers. So you can click marker and then just add those in there. I prefer generally to remove that label just because I want it to be an interactive experience where then they click on that marker and there's nothing kind of telling them to click there. But you can change your color, change your icon and all that kind of stuff. I'm doing it kind of simple today just to kind of walk through what it looks like. But then you have to create a trigger. So here I have show egress and safety, which is my layer, and when they click this button. So I'm going to go back and show you kind of what that looks like. So when I get into this scene, it's going to pull up my directions, which is another layer that I had start just 3 seconds after the timeline has started. So when I click start, I can go and actually like pan around the room with my mouse. And so it's that VR light, like you don't have a headset, you don't have anything crazy going on, but you're able to explore it in the way that you want to explore it, which I really like. So I can click anywhere that I want to click. I'm not forced to click something specific at a certain time. So it really lends to that exploratory experience. And so sometimes there's things where they're a little bit more hidden as well. So if I click here, now I have a layer show up that has some information, or it can have an interaction, something that prompts them to think about something, do something. It could be anything like that. So if you were doing maybe a more of like a breakout room or a some type of escape room type of experience, you could have questions or give them clues in order to move along through this process. But it's pretty simple to set up a basic 360 interaction, and I personally think that it gives a lot of rich content experience to the learner because they're able to look at it in their own way. And so here are the slides or the layers that I have built. And so it's really housed all in one slide all together. So I'm going to show you kind of how this works from start to finish with an AI photo. And so if we were to download this photo that we generated a few minutes ago, I generally generate it as a JPEG, sorry. And then if you go into storyline, you can just insert 360 image, and then you would just grab that image that you have. And it's simple as that, really. So when you click to edit your 360 image, you are actually diving into the editing. So if I wanted to click, see, and here we go. Here's our watermarks that you would have in your prototyping experience. So then you just add markers, and it automatically starts with that label. But you would want to trigger it to show a layer if that's what your goal is. And you can change some of the options. Otherwise, it's a pretty seamless experience. So let me show you a bit more about this camera. And I'm just going to grab my own link. Okay, so if I click here, this is the camera that I use. I like it because it has this stick, which I don't do a lot of like selfie kind of videos like this. I usually only use it for e-learning, but it's an invisible stick. So technically, you know, when you have it on the camera on the stick, it will not show the stick or the camera. It will just show your hand kind of like awkwardly holding it, which is interesting. But like I showed a few minutes ago, you can put it on a tripod. That's what I do. And you kind of have to stand far away. You can control it with your phone. There's an app. But whenever you, let's see, if you're in it, you have to kind of go back to your Lightroom experience and content aware, remove it, because I have done that before where it wouldn't trigger far enough, or I wasn't able to hide behind something. So I kind of had to remove myself from it. But using the Lightroom hack, you know, that kind of helps because you can get rid of certain things. Maybe if your dog went into the image or something, you can always get rid of it here. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I feel like I rushed through that, but
So yeah, if you've got any questions, jump into the chat. Now is the time. I guess sort of one question I've been sort of consistently asking through all of these is kind of at a time when all L&D departments are under pressure, do more with less, work more efficiently, all these kinds of things. How do you go
Mhm.
about putting forward the argument for spending the time and the resource to create something like this?
Sure. So I think that this is a really good alternative to VR, right? We know that VR can be pretty expensive, but you can use this simulation type of experience with a 360 photo fairly seamlessly. We already have a lot of the tools, probably if you have Storyline, H5P, or if you have the Adobe Creative Suite, then you can use Lightroom. It's really just that camera, which I would argue that it's not um, as much of an investment as what you can use it for, because you can use it for as many photos as you need, throughout as many years as you need, really. So that is kind of my argument. The ROI is a lot more than what you can get on it than what you spend just for the camera in the beginning.
Love it. We've got a couple
Mhm.
of questions coming in. Hi, Tori. Do you do any other image processing before putting the image into Storyline?
I don't generally. I just use it. I used to use it through Photoshop, which I really liked that experience because you're able to add some, text on the screen or on the image. You're able to add, your own personalized icons before it goes in, but they got rid of that capability. So I am still kind of exploring different options for that. Lightroom has been the easiest for me to kind of just remove things so far. But as far as adding things into it, for example, if I wanted to add a cat over here that you would want to click on, that's not really a good option. So I'm still exploring that as well if anyone has ideas.
I think we did get one in the chat. People are using Affinity to remove it.
Yeah,
Nice to see
I've
people
heard.
using Affinity. So
Okay,
it's
awesome. Yes, I've heard
worth
about
a
that one.
look.
Mhm.
And here we've got another one from Andy. We've seen click and reveal in 360 space. What about moving around from space to space? Is that possible?
Yeah, definitely. So I will show you a little bit on here. Um, we can move from the basement to the city. Okay, so if I'm going in to edit this 360 image, you can do something like this in H5P as well. It's just kind of the icons are a little bit harder to customize. So I would create a marker or a hotspot. So potentially you might want to just create a hotspot here where you would move to another location. And you would want to trigger it to jump to your next slide. So if your next slide has a new scene, that's where you would want to do that. So when I preview this, oops, I did not save it, but let's try again. Let's do this. Okay, so I can click through and then I can potentially exit to my new scene. So you're able to jump to different locations with that. Yeah, good
Brilliant.
question. Mhm.
Any more questions? Now's the time. Do put them in the chat. Um, so, do you find that this has a similar kind of impact with users as something like a VR? Because obviously, I think VR, a lot of it's pushing kind of like it's more immersive, this kind of thing.
Mhm.
Do you find people get a lot of the same value out of this kind of thing?
So I would say this is a really great solution if you're not able to send VR headsets or you're not able to fully immerse somebody in that experience. So for example, if I have people all around the country who need some type of exploratory experience or scenario like this is a really great option because they are able to do that, exploring, but you don't have to send VR headsets to everybody at different locations. They're able to seamlessly kind of utilize it in their own space, which is great.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because I think the cost of headsets has kind
Mhm,
of always been
mhm,
what's been holding back VR in so many
right.
businesses. Um,
Mhm,
really cool question here, actually. Pulse or no pulse? There was a clarification that we're talking about icons, which is good. Um,
sure.
So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it depends on your audience. It depends on your scenario, right? So if you want it to pulse, then it's easy for some people to kind of pinpoint on where those markers are. Sometimes if you have colors that kind of blend into the image, it makes it harder, especially for accessibility purposes, to see where those markers are. And sometimes people get frustrated because they can't actually find the markers. So just considering making sure that people can actually find it pretty easily. I mean, if it's more of a scavenger hunt, I can see why you would want to make it blend in, but just kind of making it a little bit obvious. And there is an option, I believe, to show hints after a few moments. So that might be an option too. Instead of having it pulse, you can have them, kind of a prompt to show hints.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Couple more coming in.
Yeah.
Is there a way to track if users are actually looking around the room or if they click the icons?
Um, I don't think so. I don't think if there's any way to track if they're actually moving around the room. That would be a question I would have about XAPI statements. And maybe it's possible, but no, I don't have I have not done enough research to figure that out. Um, I'm just trying to think if I can make it report, you know, you could have it set to where if you needed to complete the course, it would also, complete it in your LMS. But otherwise, I don't know if there's anything specific that can be done for the 360 interaction.
I think you're right. I think you would have to look into. You could either do like variable reporting that allowed you to
Right.
complete the
Mhm.
course or not,
Mhm.
or probably the slightly more
Mhm.
the proper way to do it would be like custom XAPI statements attached to every
Mhm.
button, right? But that would
Mhm.
possibly be quite a lot of work.
Yeah.
Fantastic though. Here's an interesting one from. Oh, hi Jane, nice to have you with us. I have a sensitivity to motion. Personally,
Mhm.
would prefer it without the pulse. That's quite
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that. This is another reason why a lot of people prefer these 360 images to VR, because being in the headset, you're very immersed in that experience and it can be a little overwhelming for some people. So just having this as an option, even if you do create a full VR experience, you can create this as another option for people, which would be great.
So yeah, I think we've got some questions there. People all kind of thinking along the same lines. Can you
Mhm.
trigger right to a variable? So I think yeah, you could attach
Mhm.
more triggers to the icons, couldn't you? So that when you clicked,
Yes.
it wrote to variable, then showed, and
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
there we go. We're just live action. Everyone's thinking about how they're going to build this in storyline now in the chat. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
brilliant. We'll all come
Mhm.
back together next week and see what we built. Um,
I'm excited to see.
Fantastic. Well, look, if there are any other questions, please do drop them into the chat. But if not, in the meantime, I just really want to say thank you. That was a really interesting start to the day.
Yeah.
Like this is a bit of functionality and storyline like I've spent practically no time with. Having built thousands of things in storyline, I've just never
Mhm.
even looked at it. So I think I'm definitely going to have to
Mhm.
go and give it another look. Hopefully, everyone in the chat does as well.
Mhm.
Oh, there is one coming in. Can the same 360 project be used with VR later on? Ooh.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think so. I think you have to build it in a different format in order for it to be used, because I've tried using that experience where I kind of just use maybe, well, there's no good way to export it from Articulate that would be able to be used the same way for VR, is what I've found. But somebody who's maybe more of an expert on VR could maybe answer that question, but I don't think so. You can use the same image for sure, but you might not have the same markers and content. You'd have to maybe build that in a different platform.
Lovely. And Danny's asked, we do a lot of animated content. Would this work with an illustrated backdrop?
So I believe it only works on JPEGs. So if your image was a JPEG, and then you could, that was the thing that I liked about Photoshop, is that you could add more interest into your photo. So I don't know within this editor if you can add other images. I don't believe so, or any like GIFs or anything like that is what I'm thinking. So play around with it. I would say I'd be curious to know if you can. I don't know.
I might just suggest check out the flow between Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Dimensions.
Okay.
Dimensions is like Adobe's 3D object creator. So
Okay.
you can push things like illustration work from that into that and then basically create a 3D space with it. It's not easy. Like I tried and failed several times and went, this takes a cleverer person than I. But I'm told it can be done. Marvelous. Brilliant. Well, I think again, it seems like everyone's thinking about how they're going to use this, so that's a
Sure.
fantastic sign for the end of session one, right?
Yeah.
So if there are more questions, where can people get in touch with you? Where's the best place?
Okay. Best place is LinkedIn. That's kind of where I hang out. But you are welcome to visit my website. And then this is that link again for the camera if you are interested in looking at it. So yeah, this is a little QR code for me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to connect.
Fantastic. Well, thank you ever so much.
Mhm.
Thank you, everyone, for diving in first thing in the morning, at least here in the UK, and getting so involved in the chat. We do have a little bit of a gap to our next session. Our next session is at 11 o'clock GMT, and we're greening the learning landscape, sustainability in L&D. So a little bit of a conversation shift there. But I look forward to seeing you all there. And Tori, once again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
iSpring is an e-learning software provider dedicated to streamlining e-learning worldwide. With a team of top industry specialists, they create tools that make e-learning both efficient and enjoyable. Their AI-powered course creation tool, iSpring Suite, and the iSpring Learn LMS are the top choices for thousands of instructional designers, L&D pros, and content developers. Crafted with the user workflow in mind, iSpring ensures a seamless experience for the creation of impactful learning content. Their website, ispringsolutions.com, offers a treasure trove of e-learning resources perfect for those seeking to boost their L&D career or elevate their organization's e-learning practices. You can check out the iSpring Solutions website using the link in the description below.